So today is all about the distance formula. What we want to do today is kind of look at how do we find the distance between 2 points on the coordinate plane, right? So if I take a look at a coordinate plane here, and I'm just going to zoom in. So it's really easy to find the distance between 2 points if it's like a horizontal or a vertical distance. So for example, if I had this point here and this point here, and I wanted to know the length of that, well, that's really easy because that's just 4, right? I can just count the boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. Okay. Same thing if it's vertical, right? So if I go vertical, let's say I went vertical, oh, I don't know. How about I go 6 vertical? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's a length of 6, which is fine, but things get a little bit more difficult when it's not vertical or horizontal. What if I wanted to figure out the distance between these 2 points? I can't just count the boxes, right? Because it doesn't run nicely along boxes. I could kind of estimate, maybe, I don't know, but there's got to be a better way. There is a better way. If you look at what I've basically just created, I have a right triangle now. And if I have a right triangle, right, because I had a horizontal and a vertical, so I know that that's a 90 in there, I can basically use Pythagorean theorem to find that. Now, I'm not always going to be making a right triangle though, right? They're just going to give me 2 points and I want to find the distance between this point and this point. But I want to show you how that kind of, the way that I do it really is the Pythagorean theorem. So let's take a look at what those 2 points are. So here's point A and here's point B. A is at, what is this? 2, 2, 4, 6, 8. So A is at 2, 8. And B is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2. So what I want to do is I want to focus on finding the distance between the points 2, 8 and 6, 2. And as we go through it, you're going to see how this relates back to this right triangle. Okay, so that's our goal. Let's come over here and do this. Okay, so let's do find the distance between 2, 8 and 6, 2. All right, now in order to do this without drawing it out, which you can, right? So I have it drawn out and you can do Pythagorean theorem on this, that's fine. But you don't always have graph paper. You don't always have the ability. What if they're weird numbers? Gosh, it would be so nice if there was just a formula that we could use and not have to graph it. Well, of course there is. So we need to copy down the distance formula. And let's make sure that we put a big star and we copy it down correctly so we have it. The distance formula is as follows. Oops, distance formula. So the distance, or D, is going to be equal to a big old square root. And then here's how this works. We're going to subtract the two x's. So I'm putting x1 and y1 because remember, I do have two x's here. Here's an x and a y, and here's another x and a y. So I need to distinguish between the two. So I'm going to call one of them x1. In fact, I'll write that above it right now. So this guy is x1, and this guy over here is x2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract those two values, and then I'm going to square their answer. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing just with the y's. So I'm going to take y1 and y2 and subtract them. So remember, this would be y1 And this would be y2. So once I plug all the pieces in, then it's just up to me to do the math. So remember, with order of operations, you have to do the parentheses first. So whatever's in the parentheses happens very first, then exponents. So then I'll do my exponents. Then I'm going to add those values together. And the very last thing you do is take the square root of the whole thing. All right, so let's try this with the numbers that we have here. So the distance is going to equal a big old square root. And now I got to see, x1 in this case is going to be 2 minus x2, which is 6. I'm going to close it and square it. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the y's. So let's see, y1 is 8 minus y2, which is 2. Close it and square it. Now it's just a matter of completing this correctly. So remember what I said, you got to do what's inside the parentheses first. So 2 minus 6 is a -4. 8 minus 2 is just 6. The next thing I have to do is actually square them both. So -4 squared, remember, is going to be -4 times -4. So that gets me a positive 16. And 6 squared is 36. And then I'm just going to add 16 and 36 together, and that gets me 52. And then the very, very last step is to actually grab my calculator and see what the square root of 52 is. Do not take the square root until the very, very last step. That is a common mistake. Kids like to do it right here because they're like, oh, I know the square root of 16 and I know the square root of 36. I'm just going to take the square root of both of them and then add it together. You can't do that. You're violating orders of operations. This big square root sign works like a set of parentheses. So you have to do what's in there first, and then you do the square root. So I will ask the calculator what the square root of 52 is, and I get 7.2 if I round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so now let's see what in the world this has to do with the triangle that we drew just a moment ago. Let me just slide this over so I can get them both in at the same time. If we look at this same triangle, don't you notice a couple of things that are kind of familiar? What you're really doing in this formula is you are making the triangle, the right triangle, without having to do all the work. It's going, if I just start off, right? Imagine I don't know that it's a triangle yet. I just have that line. I need to start off by finding what the horizontal distance is. And look, I got a 4. So look, I know it's a -4, but since you're squaring it anyway, that's why it doesn't matter. So you see a 4 does appear in my formula, and that's the horizontal distance. And then you do the same thing with the vertical distance, and that's a 6. Oh, look, there's a 6 here. So I don't even need to draw the triangle to get the same values that I'm going to use anyway. And think about it, when I do Pythagorean theorem over here, I'm going to be doing 4 squared or 16, 6 squared, 36. I add them together and then I take the square root, don't I? So what's so neat is that the distance formula is the Pythagorean theorem. It's just written in a way so that I can use it very easily with ordered pairs. And now I know the length of this red line, right? I wouldn't have known it otherwise. It's 7.2. Makes sense because it's supposed to be the hypotenuse. So it should be bigger than 6 and 4. But there's no way I would have been able to count 7.2 boxes when it's on a diagonal like that, right? So thank goodness we have the distance formula. Let's try another one. Let's do, let's throw some negatives in there. Why not? So we're going to find the distance between, find distance between, well, it really doesn't matter. You can pick whatever numbers you like. How about, oh, let's do 0, -2, and 7, -1, whatever. Okay, so there's 2 points. I don't need to graph it. You could, but I don't need to. I'm just going to use that distance formula. So make sure that you know who's 2. X1, Y1, and this would be X2 and Y2. Okay, and now all I have to do is put it into that distance formula. So please make certain that you have the distance formula written down correctly. You might see, like if you're looking it up on the internet or in a book, different books might list these two swapped. It might be x2 minus x1. It actually doesn't matter because you're going to square your answer. So this one, like normally we care a whole lot about the order of subtraction, but here we really don't because I'm going to square the answer anyway. So I kind of don't care whether you do x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1. Doesn't matter. So let's see. I have x1 as 0 minus x2, which is 7. Close it and square it. Now, be careful. Watch what's going on here. Everybody pay attention if you haven't paid attention yet. Watch. y1 is -2 minus. You're always going to minus. And then I got to look what y2 is. In this case, it's -1. So I have minus -1. So you guys all know what happens when I have minus a negative. What do I have to do? Anybody? Tell me what I have to do when I have minus a negative.
You make it positive.
Thank you. It turns into plus the positive. Very nice. So you do have to be mindful of that all the time. If any time ever you get minus a negative, you got to change it to plus the positive. All right, now I'm ready to do the math. 0 minus 7 is just -7. -2 plus 1 is now just going to be a -1. All right, next step is to go ahead and actually square them. So always follow order of operations. Next is exponents, right? -7 squared, that's -7 times -7 or a +49. -1 squared is now a +1 because -1 times -1 is a +1. So now looks like I'm getting the square root of 50. And I will just ask my calculator what that is because I don't know. I get 7.1. And there is the distance between those 2 points. So, I mean, that's really it. You just have to be able to identify the formula and plug all the pieces in. So let me give you another one and you try it. And let's see if we can get some correct answers on this one. So I got to turn the page here, sorry. So let's do find distance between (1, -4 and -6, 3. Okay, everybody give this one a shot. Send me your answers when you get them. You could round to the nearest 10th if it comes out weird. I don't know if this one's nice or not. I just made them up. Got my answer, so whenever you're ready. I'll write the formula here again, just in case you don't have it for some reason. Send me your answer when you get it. I'm still waiting on. Oh, I got an answer. That's not what I got, but I also did it most of it in my head. So let me double check. The last one I got 7.1, but this one that's on the screen, I have something higher than that. Anybody else get an answer? I only have one so far. So I just want to remind everybody that you have a, you're going to have a quiz on Friday. Oh, take that back. It's a test on Friday and grades close Friday. So this is the last new skill that we are learning, but if you don't bother to try any, I don't know how you're going to do on this test here for this whole section. So can you please, let's try a few of them at least? Because if you're doing something wrong, I can very easily catch it now. But if we wait, it's not so easy for me to figure out what you're doing wrong. And then you've made it a habit. So anyway, this should be x1, this is y1, over here is x2, and this is y2. So I just need to pop all the pieces in accordingly. So x1, 1 minus, you're always going to write that minus sign. And then you look and I see, oh, it's x2 is -6. So now I write it -6. So yes, I have minus a negative. So now I turn it into plus. I'm telling you, that is such an easy mistake to make. So don't let you make it. I want you to be spared from those positive negative errors. All right, y1 is -4. So watch how I write it. I write it -4, and then I always put a minus sign. Always, no matter what. And then I look and see what y2 is. This time it's just a 3, so then I just put a 3. If I need to change it to plus the positive after, that's when I do that. All right, now I'm here. So now I want to do 1 plus 6 is 7. And -4 minus 3 is -7, right? So double check that you're getting all of these numbers. So if you had, for example, if you got this one and you had a 5 squared, that tells me that you messed up the minus and negative part, right? Over here, if you had a 1, you messed up your positive negatives. So if you're looking at this next line and you had either a 5 squared or a 1 squared or a negative 1 squared, it's just an issue with your negatives. So just be really, really cautious. All right, now I'm going to square both of them. 7 squared is 49. Negative 7 squared is also 49. So I want to add 49 and 49 together. And I get, well, it's 98, right? But then I need to take the square root of 98, which is, I get it to be 9.9 if you are rounding correctly. So if you made an error, I hope that you figured out where you went wrong. If you can't, please absolutely let me know and I'll help you find it, because I don't want you to make an error again. All right, let's try another one. I'm going to give you some more negatives and I'll throw a 0 in there. So try this one. Let's do 0, -9, and -3, 0. Let's do those two. Then you can round to the nearest 10th. I will give you a hint on this one. Oh, excuse me. Your answer should be somewhere between 8 and 12. So if you get an answer that is not in between 8 and 12, there is an error somewhere. But hopefully you can find it on your own. Just go back and retrace any steps. Make sure you're using the right formula, which I'll write again here. Do you need to memorize the formula? In normal life, yes, but since everything is open notes this semester, then no, you really don't have to, as long as you have it written down somewhere and you can find it. However, I find that once you write it a couple of times, you memorize it anyway. That always worked for me. Anytime I had to memorize, you know, whatever it was, certain dates, facts, whatever. For me, writing it again and again and again, that's what would kind of work. Elizabeth, that is almost, I keep getting the answers, like the answer that you're sending me. I don't know if it's just delayed. Can you guys hear me okay? Hold on. Because I'm getting answers from Elizabeth, but they're always to like the question before. Mr. Orley, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all set.
All right. Well, anyway, so study guide tip number 15 with Mrs. Sabia. Write them out. And then, so yes, I know it doesn't apply now, but when you go off and you're at college and you have some big exam to study for, try it. This is what I used to do. True story. I would make myself let's assume that the teacher gives you, they say, okay, you can bring a note card. So whatever you want to know on that note card, you can write it down. So I would write, I'd make my note card with whatever information I wanted. But even if the teacher said that you couldn't have a note card, I would still make it. I wouldn't cheat, but I would then take that study card and I would rewrite it over and over and over and over again until I knew the stuff. And then as soon as the teacher gave me the test or the quiz or whatever, I'd turn it over and I'd write all that information on it. So it's like having a cheat sheet, but it's not, because it was all from my brain and then I just dumped it all out on the paper. And then you don't have, now you can go back and do the test or the quiz and you don't have to worry about, oh crap, now I can't remember what that formula was, or whatever it is, because it's right there, you already put it. So I'm telling you, that got me through a lot of tests and quizzes doing it that way. Any information, as soon as you get the test, don't even look at what the questions are yet. Just whatever information you've tried to remember for it, go to the back or the side or wherever and just write all of that out. It works. For me, it did anyway. I hope it does for you. Any Hoosers, I'm here and I'm going to try this one. And I'm going to label all these. Here's X1, Y1, X2, and Y2. Okay. So all we have to do is pop everything in and we'll be good to go. X1, what are you? You are 0. So I'm going to write 0 minus. See, I always put it right away. And then I look and I see what X2 is. Oh, it's -3. I have minus and negative. So now I come in and I change it. Always close it and square it. All right. I've been doing this a long time and that method has helped me quite a bit. All right. Now I do the same thing with Y1. So I write -9 minus. You write the minus sign. Then you look. What's Y2? Oh, it's 0. So I just put a 0. Easy peasy. Now I'm going to do the math. 0 and 3 added together is obviously 3. -9 minus 0 is still -9. And now all I have to do is square, add, and square root. So that's a 9. That's an 81. So I need to add 9 and 81 together. Oh, that obviously gets me 90. Whew. And now I'm just going to take the square root of 90. And according to my calculator, I'm getting 9.5. Right? So I'll show you. This is what comes out on my calculator screen. 9.486832981, blah, 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 right? So if I'm going to round to the nearest 10th, I want it to be this number, so I'm looking at the next one past it. Since it's an 8, I got to round that up to 9.5. So that's my answer on this one. Okay, a couple of things about your answer for distance. It should always be a positive value. Always. You're never going to get a negative number here. How could you have a negative distance? I don't really know in this sort of application, right? So if I want to find the distance between 2 points, it should always be a positive value. And the reason why it will, I know for a fact it will always be positive is right here. This step, no matter how these numbers come out, positive or negative, who cares? I'm going to square them. So anytime you square a number, whether it's positive or negative, you're going to get a positive value. Or 0, right? That's the only other thing. If you took 0 and squared it, you could get 0, but I'm never going to get a negative. That's the key. So if I'm just going to add 2 positive numbers together, obviously that's going to stay positive, and then the square root of every positive number is another positive number. So the smallest distance I could possibly have is 0, but then you don't even have a line. You'd literally be finding the distance from a point to itself. So why would you bother doing that? You probably wouldn't, right? So distance should always be some positive value at the end. Okay, and it makes sense because I'm squaring my numbers. So yeah, they should always end up being positive. All right, does anybody have any questions on using the distance formula, how it works, how you need to type things in the calculator? No? Okay, so let's see here. I think your homework today is on delta. So we're going to delta today, which means that it is probably already live. So if you feel ready to go, then go ahead and try this. I will do a couple of them out for anybody that wants a little bit more help. All right, I'm going to share this screen and we will go from there. All right, so if you go to Delta, you should have this assignment that pops right up. And pretty straightforward. I just have to find the distance between the two. They do want you to round to the nearest tenth, so you need to make sure that you are rounding correctly, because if you don't, you will get marked wrong, and I don't want that to happen to you. So let's go ahead and what am I gonna do here? I want to zoom in just a little bit to make sure that everybody can see my numbers. Am I doing this right? No. There it is. Okay, so there's my 2 points. So I'm going to come in and I like to label them. You don't have to if you're good at it, but especially just to make sure everybody knows that's my first X and that's my first Y. This is my second X and this is my second Y. So when I go to do the distance formula, I know where all the pieces go. So speaking of the distance formula, here it is in all its glory. All right, so now I'm just plugging in the pieces. So x1 is 2 minus, now I look, what's x2? 0. Close it, square it. Do the same thing with the y's. -3 minus, and then I look, -8. So because I have minus a negative, I have to turn that into plus the positive. Close it and square it. Now I just do the math. 2 minus 0 is just 2. -3 plus 8 is 5. Okay, so 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 25, 4 and 25 is just 29. And I just need to ask my calculator what that is. And I get, now be careful. How is this going to round? So here it is. Here's what your calculator is going to say. 5.38516, blah, blah, blah. So what does this round to if you are rounding to the nearest tenth? This number right here. Someone tell me, send it in the chat, give me something here. Thank you. I got it in the chat. Yes, that is going to be a 5.4 if you round correctly. There's 10, so you got to look at the next one out. So make sure you enter 5.4 because watch, I'll enter 5.3 and I bet you it's going to tell me I'm wrong. So if you just did 5.3, yes, I'm sure, even though I know it's wrong. See? So you got to be careful. This should have been 5.4. And now let's see if it takes it. Yes. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the homework. I think, yeah, I have you required to do 10. So even if you get one wrong, that's okay. It's just going to give you another one. All right, so at this time, let's go ahead and stop this video.